Venom. The symbiote we have all come to know as Venom comes from a planet called Clintar. On its home planet, the symbiotes, or the Clintar as they prefer to be called, are a benevolent race that exist in a hive mind, capable of sensing the voice of the cosmos. They strive to maintain peace throughout the galaxy by using the symbiosis they depend on to transform worthy hosts into the ultimate noble warriors, known as the agents of the cosmos. However, creating the ultimate noble warrior is no mean task. The host must contain a perfect balance of both moral and physical ideals. If not, the symbiosis could corrupt both the Clintar and its host, causing devastating consequences. Venom was bred to become an agent of the cosmos, and eventually bonded to a host from an icy planet. Sadly, this host was far from worthy, and he used the young symbiote to commit genocide on his home world, poisoning its mind with rage and a passion for killing. Its fellow Clintar decided that the rogue symbiote should be imprisoned. During the Secret Wars storyline, the prison ended up on Battleworld, a planet created by the Beyonder to be used as an arena. The Beyonder kidnapped a group of heroes and villains to see who would win in a fight of good against evil. After Spider-Man's suit was torn to shreds in battle, Thor and Hulk told Spidey that there was a machine that could repair his costume in an instant. Spidey found the wrong machine, and without knowing, released the symbiote from its prison. The symbiote latched itself onto Spider-Man, and, after reacting to his thoughts about the outfit worn by the second Spider-Woman, he formed the now famous black and white costume. Spidey was initially amazed with his new outfit, as he found that the suit could mimic street clothes and seemed to supply an endless amount of stronger webbing. However, Spidey soon began to suspect that something was not right with the costume, and took it to the Fantastic Four to be analysed. Mr. Fantastic learned that the suit was a sentient alien symbiote that wanted to bond permanently with Spider-Man, and would often control his body while he slept. It was also discovered that the symbiote was vulnerable to sound and intense heat, so the heroes used sonic waves and flames to remove the suit and scare it into a containment module. But the module couldn't hold Venom for long, and it soon found its way back to Peter Parker's wardrobe, where it disguised itself as a spare red and blue uniform. When the symbiote tried to force a bond with Spider-Man, he fled to the bell tower of Our Lady of Saints' Church. The bells rang, forcing the symbiote to let Spider-Man go. Peter's rejection left the symbiote extremely bitter towards him, and the next time they met, they would engage in a deadly battle. Unknown to Spider-Man, also at Our Lady of Saints, was Eddie Brock, a reporter who had written an exclusive revealing the identity of Sin Eater, only to be fired when Spider-Man called the real crook, making Brock a laughingstock. Fired from his job, ditched by his wife, disowned by his father, Brock was also diagnosed with terminal adrenal cancer. As he prayed for forgiveness for contemplating suicide as a way out, another solution to his situation presented itself: the symbiote. Attracted by their mutual hatred of Spider-Man, it bonded to him. And so, Venom was born. Out of Spidey's long and terrifying list of deadly enemies, one of, if not the most terrifying and deadliest of them, would be the gruesome Venom. So who is responsible for dragging out this beast from the very worst of nightmares into the light of the Marvel Universe? Well, the list of people who deserve credit is a fairly long one. You could trace the seed of the idea that would eventually become Venom back to one of Marvel's many fans, Randy Schueller. Back in the early 80s, Marvel ran a competition for aspiring writers and artists. Schueller took a shot at the competition and wrote a story which revolved around Spider-Man getting a brand new costume. A few months later, Schueller received a letter from the editor-in-chief at the time, Jim Shooter, saying he liked the idea and wanted to buy it for $220. Shooter decided that the new costume should be black and white, and gave Mike Zeck the task of designing the costume, which would soon become the symbiote costume. The idea of a costume made of self-healing biological material came from writer-artist John Byrne for Iron Fist, back when he was the character's artist. Later, Roger Stern asked him if he could use the idea for Spider-Man's alien costume. Once Stern had the idea, he plotted the issue with the costume's first appearance, but then left the title. Writer Tom DeFalco and artist Ron Frenz are the ones who then established the costume as a living, sentient alien who was vulnerable to sonic energy and fire. When DeFalco and Frenz's run on Amazing Spider-Man came to an end, and after Spidey had rejected the symbiote, David Michelinie became the writer on the title. The editor of the time, Jim Salicrup, decided that he wanted a new villain for the upcoming 300th issue. It was suggested a female symbiote character, which the editor-in-chief liked, but he decided that the symbiote character should be male, and so the writer began to develop the troubled character of Eddie Brock. Venom's existence was first teased in Web of Spider-Man number 18 in 1986, in a panel showing a hand shoving Peter in front of a train without his spider sense warning him. More hints followed in Web of Spider-Man 24, 1987, when Peter climbed out of a high-story window to change into Spider-Man, but found a black arm coming through the window and grabbing him, once again without warning from his spider sense. A final teaser popped up in Amazing Spider-Man 298 in 1988, with a partial appearance on the final page, where he was concealed by shadow. Todd McFarlane was the artist on Amazing Spider-Man at the time, so the task of bringing the new villain to life on the comic's pages fell to him. Amazing Spider-Man 299. It was finally time for McFarlane and Michelinie to give Venom his first full appearance, which was splashed across the final page. For years, Venom was portrayed purely as an evil villain, obsessed with killing Spider-Man once and for all. But after a while, a new side to Venom began to emerge, one that made the reader wonder whether the mixed-up alien symbiote might not be so bad after all. Okay, sure, it's determined to tear Spider-Man limb from limb, and it enjoys the brutal side of killing more than anyone should, but it rarely kills indiscriminately. As Venom, Eddie Brock even retains some affection for his ex-wife, Anne. And after Spider-Man saved her from being crushed under a falling Ferris wheel, Venom made temporary peace with him. So long as Spider-Man would not go after them, he and Brock would leave for a new city. In February 1993, Venom was given his first own solo title, Venom, Lethal Protector. This title allowed readers to start thinking of Venom as more than a creature that just wants to eat Spider-Man. Now, trying to live under the radar in San Francisco, Venom acted as a dark vigilante, gaining the respect and trust of an underground society of homeless people. Since then, Venom has gone back and forth from villain to hero, and has had plenty of hosts. While his host was Mac Gargan, best known as the Scorpion, Venom was a blood-hungry Asgardian flesh-eating monster. During his time with Flash Thompson, he ended up becoming a protector of the galaxy. With a track record like that, only one thing is certain. There are no guarantees with Venom around. It could eat you, or it could save you. We now know that the hand that pushed Peter Parker in front of a subway train in Web of Spider-Man number 18 belonged to Eddie Brock, just like the black arm that grabbed him through a window, but we didn't fully meet him until the Amazing Spider-Man 300. Brock had a real hatred for Spider-Man, blaming him for ruining his career as a reporter. And of course, the Venom symbiote hated Spider-Man too, for rejecting it. The two were united in their desire for revenge. Their first encounter really took it out of Spider-Man too, but he managed to take advantage of the vulnerability to sound and also wore him out by forcing him to keep on producing webbing until he finally collapsed from exhaustion. He was back 1 year later when he escaped from the vault where he had been imprisoned and returned to torment Peter Parker. Eddie Brock tracked Peter down to his new home 2 issues later and revealed his aversion to hurting innocent people and giving his reasons for not attacking his enemy straight away. He also told Peter that he had no intention of revealing his secret identity to anyone, because he wanted his scalp for himself. In the end, when Peter gave up, there was an unexpected twist, as the symbiote tried to abandon Brock and reattach itself to Peter. However, here it had already bonded too much with Brock, and the pain caused both Brock and the symbiote to black out, allowing Spider-Man to call for backup and to have Venom incarcerated once again. In April 1990, in the Amazing Spider-Man number 331, Brock escaped from the vault once again, after faking his own suicide. Venom was eventually subdued after being touched by Styx, whose hands transmit cancer, and Brock was taken away to Rikers Island. Upon the symbiote's recovery, it broke Brock out of prison, but left a spore behind, which transformed his cellmate, serial killer Cletus Cassidy, into Carnage. Venom was left stranded on a deserted island after Spider-Man faked his own death. Spider-Man had to retrieve him a short while later, bringing him back to New York to help him put an end to Carnage's killing spree. Over the next few years, Venom made his way in the world as a vigilante. In the 1995 Planet of the Symbiote serial, he even teamed up with Spider-Man and Scarlet Spider to fight off an invading army of symbiotes. In Amazing Spider-Man 375, after Spidey helped to save Brock's ex-wife, Venom proposed his truce. He would stop coming after him if he stopped coming after him. The two reached an agreement, and there seemed to be peace. But of course, that wasn't to last. Venom entered the 21st century, having cemented his place as one of Spider-Man's ultimate enemies. In Amazing Spider-Man Volume 2, Issue 22, October 2000, Brock blamed his old enemy Spider-Man for the death of his ex-wife and swore revenge. But before he could act on his grief, he was kidnapped by the human-alien hybrid, Senator Ward. Ward separated the symbiote from Brock in order to study it closely, but then he allowed it to leave and rejoin its host. The 2003 storyline, The Hunger, revealed that Brock was suffering from cancer when he first came into contact with Venom. Brock's cancer caused the release of adrenaline, which the symbiote fed upon, whilst at the same time keeping the cancer from spreading. But the symbiote wanted a healthy host, and abandoned Brock for Spider-Man, leaving him to die. Spider-Man tricked the creature into returning to Eddie, saving him. In the 2005 Venom vs. Carnage series, Carnage gave birth to a new symbiote, Toxin. Carnage wanted to kill its offspring, but Venom hoped to nurture it. But when Toxin spared the life of Carnage, Venom decided he was too dangerous and could become an ally of Spider-Man if he was allowed to live. Toxin was saved by Spider-Man and the Black Cat. Eddie Brock sold the symbiote, knowing he would die without it. This led to gangster Angelo Fortunato becoming the new Venom for a short while. But the symbiote found him unworthy and abandoned him in mid-leap, allowing him to fall to his death. The next Venom was to be Mac Gargan, the Scorpion, but the symbiote was still emotionally attached to Brock, and in a fight between Gargan and a now cured Brock in his new anti-Venom guise, it refused to let Gargan kill him. Gargan was to play a role in Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers, resembling the black-suited Cyberman. Mike Gargan had the symbiote forcibly removed after his incarceration on the raft, following the Siege of Asgard storyline in 2011. In January of that year, it was revealed that there was a new Black Ops Venom, owned by the US government. This new Venom was revealed to be Flash Thompson. Wisely, the authorities had also installed a kill switch in case Flash ever lost control of the unpredictable symbiote. He was to go on to become a member of the Secret Avengers, the Thunderbolts, and the Guardians of the Galaxy. At one point, the symbiote was removed from him and bonded with discharged Army Ranger Lee Price, a completely villainous Venom, intent on using the powers of the symbiote against its wishes for his own personal gain. The FBI needed help to bring this ruthless version of Venom down, and alongside Spider-Man, who else would they call in but the man who was to the symbiote, Eddie Brock? Once the Clintar was lured into leaving Price, Brock once again bonded with his love, and the true Venom was back on the streets. Their relationship is more intense than ever, but the pairing seems set to stick together, and no one is going to stand in their way.